All right, this is Openstax U.S. History, Chapter 32, Section 4, Hope and Change. So in the previous sections, in Chapter 32, we talked about the presidency of George W. Bush. And he was president from 2000, winning re-election to 2008. In the election of 2008, Barack Obama, the Democrat, ran against John McCain, the Republican. And here's John McCain right here. Here is Barack Obama right here. Obama ran on the platform of hope and change. In fact, one of the things that made Obama the Democratic nominee was that he voted against the war in Iraq, where his opponent, Hillary Clinton, voted for it, and so did John Kerry, who also lost the 2004 presidential election to George W. Bush. So this idea of hope and change was, of course, hope and change from the George W. Bush era. Bush in 2008 and the Republicans in general were just very unpopular. Barack Obama became the first African-American president. And one of the most immediate issues facing the Obama administration was the 2008 Great Recession, which was only beginning at that time. In fact, it was occurring during the presidential election as Obama and McCain were campaigning across the country. Obama more or less continued what George W. Bush did, and that was to provide bailouts and resources to American businesses to save them. The auto bailout was money for American car companies to save them. And the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was more or less a stimulus, however you spell stimulus, providing, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of $800 billion in order to shore up certain American industries. And this was considered the auto bailout, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Remember last chapter we talked about TARP. All of these things were designed to combat the 2008 Great Recession. Obama, one of his kind of key campaign promises, and maybe the most important part of his presidency, was his push for Obamacare. And this was to expand medical coverage. Really the first significant change to the medical system, at least on the government side, really since the 1960s and Lyndon Johnson with Medicare and Medicaid. And what Obamacare sought to do was to create or make healthcare more available to more Americans, and that's really what it did. However, there was opposition. The Tea Party was a wing of the Republican Party who not only objected to specifically Obamacare, but really sought to limit the maybe the power of the federal government. So this was the Tea Party was government. The Tea Party was an organization / movement in the country to limit the size and scope of the government. A lot of members of the Tea Party were not happy with Obamacare. They were not really happy with some of the bailouts that occurred, whether it was TARP, the auto bailout, or the stimulus, that, in their eyes, that money was being given to irresponsible actors and it's better off spent in other places. Despite the Tea Party movement, the election of 2012, Barack Obama ran against Republican Mitt Romney. So this was Mitt Romney versus Obama in 2012, and Obama was victorious, showing that, here's Mitt Romney right here, showing that Americans wanted a continuation of the Obama years. And really, your textbook kind of, I don't know exactly when it was written, but it begins to end kind of in the 2010s, or at least in the early 2010s. And so it just talks about at the very conclusion of the text some of the ongoing challenges that the country faced dating back to 2012, 13, 14, 15, around that era. One was in education and the changing nature of the economy. Specifically, this term knowledge workers refers to college educated workers / jobs. And that really, when it comes to our technological economy, that there's really only jobs there for those who are college educated, that our economy is becoming too reliant upon knowledgeable workers, whereas there were plenty of jobs available in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s that did not require a college degree. Most jobs today too, and that presents a challenge for our economy and our society. You also see an increasing trend in what's called the boomerang generation. That is kids going to college. And again, typically 60s, 70s, 80s, this would then go on to get a job and a house, whereas now it's moving back with parents, right? Right, so none of this. Boomerang generation, again, kids go to college, they get their degree, they can't find a job, they end up moving back in with their parents like a boomerang. It goes and then it comes back. Does this present another unique problem for the United States in these years? Significant progress was made on the front of LGBT rights during the Obama administration. LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual. The Supreme Court ruled against DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. Remember, DOMA made marriage legally defined between one man, and one woman. And so this ruling by the Supreme Court made it legal. The Supreme Court ruled that it was a violation of the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the laws, made it legal for states to allow for same-sex marriages, but also got a lot of opposition from states who still wanted to define marriage as being only between one man and one woman. Other things that happened under the Obama administration: the Department of Education made it illegal for schools to discriminate against transgender students, and Medicare also allowed for, or said that, sexual reassignment surgery should be covered as a condition under Medicare. So these were some important things that happened during the Obama years. Domestically, violence, but a specific new type of violence, really emerged and shocked and disturbed American audiences. School shootings in particular, starting with Columbine in the 1990s. This occurred at a high school. 2 students shot their classmates, killed a number of people there. Sandy Hook was perhaps the most shocking. This happened in the 2000s. This happened at an elementary school in which a 16-year-old shooter shot and killed 5, 6, 7-year-old students and the faculty there. Both of these were incredibly shocking for the nation. They were part of a very disturbing trend, as there were much more school shootings to follow, and often brought up debates regarding gun control and the Second Amendment, and continue to be an issue even today. Domestic terror did not go away. The Boston Marathon bombing, this was an instance of, domestic terror in a sense that it was a terror attack on U.S. soil, in the same vein as something like September 11th. At the Boston Marathon, terrorists placed the bomb, killing 3 people there, only leading to a continued debate about the war on terror. And in the Middle East, specifically in Iraq, despite the effort by the United States to rebuild Iraq into a stable country, that's kind of proved elusive in a lot of ways. Evidence of this is the rise of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which took control of parts of Iraq and Syria. And this was a radical Islamist organization, which coordinated terror attacks on U.S. and others. And this, of course, was anyways, not so much anymore today in 2020, but at the time that the textbook was written, a major concern for the United States. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria is, very similar to what we talked about earlier in the organization of Al-Qaeda.